Series fans, my name is Taylor and welcome to Above the Yellow Line, the show where we talk about all the updates, theories, news, recaps, and more of the NASCAR Cup Series. This weekend's race was the Geico 500 at Talladega Superspeedway, and this podcast is all about recapping the excitement from the track. It filled my heart with pure joy to actually hear the crowd through my TV Sunday and to see the awesome atmosphere at the track. It was a good one for sure. Nothing new to update you all on. I want to offer my congrats though to Jeb Burton winning his first Xfinity Series race in a rain-shortened fashion. He led many laps prior to this call, so a very deserving win for him and his colleague racing team. I also have to offer my congrats to Noah Gragson for capturing the Dash for Cash bonus yet again, a $100,000 bonus that he's giving to his number 9 crew. Great job to both drivers at the Xfinity race Saturday, but today it's all about Sunday. So now let's give an updated version of our field for the Cup race and how they started before we go to the finishing order of these drivers. As the new starting order is pulling up, you can see there's already a lot to talk about with 7 drivers sent to the rear of the field, and you'll notice all the Toyota drivers minus Kyle Busch were sent to the back of the field for unapproved adjustments. The unapproved adjustment, you might ask, has to do with the A-post of the car. Now, I have no clue what an A-post is. I had to reach out for help, so Bob Podcrast was kind enough to help me out on Twitter. It's a post, as the name says, by the driver window and windshield. Bob speculates how teams can mess with this, speaking of like the wrapping of the post and everything, and I think that is a very good educated guess, as you can see here. So with that, NASCAR sent them to the rear moments before the drivers got in the car. To clarify, if you're wondering, yes, Timmy Hill also drives a Toyota, but he is not included in these cars to the rear because he was already starting at the rear of the field, and also, I believe his inspection came off clean. He was fine. I know the Toyotas were a long shot to win these races, and I talked about that in my last podcast, so having this happen to all of them leads me to 2 things. One, they were trying to do something real special to give them a boost, and 2, that something special might have been sending them all to the back of the field because, as we know, when you are at these Superspeedway races, there is safety in numbers, and when you have all your Toyotas together to start the race, other than having to kind of find yourselves throughout the first 20 laps of the race, that gives you a better shot at potentially winning. Toyota really went for it. They tried so hard to get their manufacturer a win at the Superspeedway, and it just did not pan out. With that, let's go to your finishing order of this race. Like I said, didn't pan out for the Toyotas, but it did pan out for a Ford like I predicted. Brad Keselowski took home his 6th Talladega win. We'll talk about him more in depth after we just name off the top 10 here. William Byron was in 2nd, Mcdowell in 3rd, Harvick 4th, Matt DiBenedetto finishing 5th, his first top 5 of the season, Kaz Grala in 6th, Tyler Reddick 7th, Austin Dillon 8th, Ryan Blaney 9th, and Colt Custer in 10th. Just in the top 10 alone, there is so much to dissect, so we're gonna go ahead and do that real quick before we go outside the top 10 to look at some other finishers of this race. Starting with Keselowski, I said this was his 6th Talladega win, and this ties Dale Jr. and Jeff Gordon for the most wins at this track. We know Dale Sr. has 10 wins at the track. Brad Keselowski only led the last lap, but as we know, that is the only lap that matters during these races. I was really concerned for Keselowski at the start of the season. Not to say that my concerns are completely erased for Keselowski, but him having a very decent day running in the top 10 all day long and then getting this win, things are looking up for the 2 team of Brad Keselowski. Now we have to move on to 2nd place William Byron, and gosh, I can say this week after week, he is not getting enough credit. The broadcast booth is not giving him enough credit. This is his 8th straight top 10 of the season. This is the best streak by a Hendrick Motorsports driver in 7 years. He's putting out record numbers and nobody even seems to care. They mention it, very vaguely, but nobody's treating it like a Kevin Harvick success or a Denny Hamlin success or I guess any of those things. He's a 3rd-year Cup driver and he's sitting 4th in points. That's better than championship driver Chase Elliott. That's better than Kevin Harvick right now. That impressive 24 Chevrolet team over there at Hendrick Motorsports. Pay attention to them, please. Let's move on to your 3rd place finisher, Michael Mcdowell. The Daytona 500 winner was so close to getting this win on the final overtime restart, but fell just short. He had an impressive run today, got stage points in both stages, was always in the mix for getting that win. That front row team has Superspeedways absolutely figured out. Let's go to 4th place finisher, Kevin Harvick, finishing inside the top 5, his 4th time this season. Harvick actually led laps today too, a shocker but also a very pleasant and welcoming sight to see from this team. 12 laps. This is the second race this season that he has led laps, the last being the Daytona 500 where he led 17. We'll talk about another one of his teammates in a second in the top 10, but let's go to 5th place finisher Matt DiBenedetto. That 21 Wood Brothers team, my heart breaks for this team consistently. My race winning pick was so close to this win. I think he would have had it if it weren't for a caution with 4 to go, and we'll discuss that in down the line, but seriously, I'm crushed. I know the NASCAR fan base is pretty crushed too with this. DiBenedetto led the second most laps this race behind Denny Hamlin. Matt led 28 laps this race. DiBenedetto also won Stage 1 and would have collected points in Stage 2, but made a really bad blocking choice against Kyle Busch to get some stage points. Didn't work out for him or Kyle Busch. Though I do want to mention this, he finished better than he did last weekend and continues his stat of having better finishes each and every weekend. I'm just hoping that these stats mean that we are going to see a Matt DiBenedetto win this season that will get him into the playoffs. Let's talk about the 6th place finisher. It's a name you probably have not heard of before. He's done Xfinity, he's been in a few cup races. I think he was only in one this season so far, but Cosgrala finished this race in 6th. Impressive from him. Everyone's saying we need to get him in a full-time cup ride. I say this was a Superspeedway race. It's really unpredictable, so give him more cup rides for sure, and then if he does well on those, give him a full-time ride. There's no denying his talent. He's only been in a few cup races, and he's finished extremely well in all of those, so I will be keeping an eye out for Cosgrala in the future, and I hope you will be too. We're going to gloss over 7th and 8th place finishers. We have Tyler Reddick finishing in 7th, nothing really to mention there. 8th place finisher, Austin Dillon. This is his second top 10 finish in a row. Impressive from those two teams making their way into the top 10. Then we have 9th place finisher, Ryan Blaney. He won this race last June, as we know, in contention all day long for the win. He led 11 laps and collected stage points in both stages. He wasn't able to get the win today, but a solid day for that team. He was also very close on the final restart at the end to getting that win. Just didn't happen for them today. Then in 10th place, we have to talk about this, a Stewart-Haas racing car. Colt Custer, finally another one of those Stewart-Haas racing guys, makes their way inside the top 10 besides Kevin Harvick. We know Almirola was the first of the SHR teammates besides Harvick to finish inside the top 10 starting last weekend. And this weekend it was Colt Custer's turn, the second-year Cup Series driver. Very impressive from that team. They were there when it mattered. That's the thing with these Superspeedway tracks. You have to be there when it matters and when it counts, and that team was. So congrats to them on their first top 10 of the season. And that was your final driver inside the top 10, so let's move outside the top 10 with some more notable finishers. On the subject of Aric Almirola, he actually led his first laps of the year after Ryan Blaney swapped spots for the lead. Take a look at this. When Blaney got a massive piece of debris on his grille, that move to get Almirola in front of Ryan Blaney's car to get that debris off the grille was executed so well, almost like the blink of an eye. Nothing went wrong, everything was fine. It ended up giving Almirola the lead, which he maintained. Even with the vibration in his car for the most part of the day, he finished 15th. Fellow teammate Chase Briscoe, rookie this year, finished ahead of him in 11th, a good finish, so close to getting inside that top 10. This is his best finish this season so far, I believe. He's had a pretty rough start to the season, so I'll take it. We'll take that for Chase Briscoe. Let's jump into my race pick with the podium finish. I chose Ryan Newman, who ran in the top 20 all day, finishing the race 13th. I should have stuck with my gut and chose Matt DiBenedetto with the podium finish, but I wanted to go for another long shot win and do something different that nobody else was doing in case something crazy happened, which, as we know with Superspeedway racing, things like that can definitely happen. Newman closed out the day pretty well, I think maintaining a cautious approach to the day. I don't think that was his strategy. Maybe it was, cannot speak for him. But he finished better than he looked today, so kudos to him and that team. I don't want to ignore Ryan Preece today. You'll see him finishing 14th, leading a few laps today. Chastain, who I thought was going to cause many wrecks today, making me want to scream at my TV, finished 16th. And then you'll see the first Toyota car, Christopher Bell, finishing 17th. Yeah, Toyota's highest finishing position came in 17th. It was a disastrous day for the whole Toyota camp, I think, at the end of the day, with penalty after penalty, breaking them up in the field. It just did not work for them today. Bubba Wallace, though, I think actually performed the best, besides I want to say Denny Hamlin, but performed the best out of the Toyotas today. He actually won Stage 2 and did incredibly well. He finished this race 19th. It doesn't highlight the amazing day he had, but at least the start was a step in the right direction. We know that team has struggled for these past few weeks since the start of the season. Even Bubba Wallace started at the rear of the field, and by lap 4, he had gained 31 spots, moving up to 9th place, and by lap 13, he led this race. He led 16 laps today, and his car just looked incredible. incredibly good. It was the first time we've seen his car look good this whole season, at least in a long run. He looked like he could have won this whole thing today at points, and I think the Toyotas here just got screwed over, like I said, by their lack of strength in numbers. We will talk more about Bubba Wallace in down the line. I want to quickly shout out Harrison Burton and his Cup debut finishing 20th today, and then let's talk about those who did not finish this race so well, or didn't finish at all. Starting with Daniel Suarez, who was my long shot win for this race, finishing 23rd after another incident, again, with William Byron on the last restart. I believe he was shoved out of line. Chase Elliott, I have no clue what's happening with him, but he finished this race 24th. He was pretty much a non-factor today, and I'm going to be concerned if he can't win or at least finish in the top 5 in the next road course race we have. Not looking good for that team so far, our championship of the 2020 season. Eric Jones, who was in position for a win on the final restart, wrecked out on the final lap, finishing in 27th. Teammates Martin Truex Jr. and Denny Hamlin finished 31st and 32nd. Hamlin 2 laps down, I think, at that point in the race. And the Martin Truex Jr., oh god, we'll discuss that later. I'm not happy with Martin Truex Jr. for this race. Finally, Bowman and Logano out of this race for wrecks, and Larson only ran 4 laps until his engine blew. Let's take a quick look at these points just around the cutoff line, though, with Keselowski winning this race that locks him into the playoffs, and 9 of the 16 spots are taken. Drivers taking the final 2 spots in points are, my goodness gosh, Kyle Busch in 15th in standings and Austin Dillon 16th. Then outside looking in is Matt DiBenedetto, 12 points down. I think he can make that up, though, and Kurt Busch 13 points down. The next one in line, as you can see, is Ryan Newman, 31 points down. So as of now, the race is really tight with those immediate guys in the cutoff bubble. It'll be a really close race between those guys trying to make their way into the playoffs. Lots of explaining to do, though, when it comes to these outcomes of the race. We talked about how these drivers finished, but that's only half of it. We have to go down the line with key moments in this race. Only a few key moments to talk about here, but they have a lot to discuss within them. So let's get started with moment number 1, called Bad Blocks and Scary Wrecks. Both stages ended under caution due to wrecks, and like all Superspeedway races, they were wrecking to the checkered flag. We will break down the final restart and the final down the line moment, but let's talk about 2 key wrecks and a few scary moments starting with stage 1. Here you'll see Matt DiBenedetto near the end of stage 2 fighting for the stage win and almost wrecking Kyle Busch out, sending him below the yellow line. Now, no one was called. There was no violation for sending him below the yellow line. I think they both suffered the consequences enough, but yet again, don't know why it wasn't called. This could have been a very, very scary wreck that ended both of their days. I think it was just a very uncalculated risk for Matt DiBenedetto. I know he was going for a win. He wanted the points. He wanted the stage win, but it just was not smart. I don't like that move at all, and I hope it doesn't happen again. Like I said, could have been very scary. Moving on to another scary instance, I would say it could have been much worse, but the final lap of stage 2, Brad puts the block on Denny Hamlin. The bumper of the 19 gets to Hamlin's car, and then in that instance, his car turns sideways. It almost looked like Hamlin was trying to get out of line here, maybe? This wreck involved Truex, Hamlin, and the rest of the Hendrick guys were sent into the infield. They did not have a good day at all. The only one able to recover fully from this wreck out of all those involved was William Byron. This wreck here is the same situation we're about to talk about happening in stage 1, so keep this one in your brain with Denny Hamlin being turned sideways here. Moving to stage 1. This one was scary as crap. It's the last lap of the stage. The racing is super intense and the cars are super unsteady, and just like that, we see the 22 car of Joey Logano in the air. Take a look at this. Hamlin moves down to go around Joey Logano, and it just moves him. Stenhouse actually, I think, gets to the back of Hamlin's car here, and then Stenhouse moves out of line, taps the back of Joey's car, and it goes sideways and sends him into orbit. Incredibly frightening. I cannot imagine what it would be like in the car in Joey's position. He said he literally had the track bar at his head in an interview I'm going to show in a few seconds. That is just not okay. I want to take a look at Bubba Wallace's view from his dash cam. You can see the car literally flipping towards Bubba and literally just clipping the side of his car. I would have personally lost it sitting in that car. Super scary. I would have thought I was going to die. Respect to these drivers that do this week in, week out. One thing I'm learning after this, though, is the big one does not have to be a massive 20-car pileup. It can literally just be a single car flip that sends shivers down your spine. We didn't have any massive car pileups today during this race, but we had this. Thank goodness Joey Logano was okay, but he did have some words for NASCAR after the fact. Moment number 2, I'm calling What's in the Box. Now, this is questioning the Superspeedway package. I mean, because get it? It's like the package is another name for box or gift or something. I really tried with wordplay here. I just don't think it worked, but I'm gonna keep it. We're gonna keep moment number 2 being What's in the Box. With the incredibly scary Logano wreck, the Superspeedway package is coming back into question. Logano questioned the racing we're seeing at these superspeedways. If you can recall the final lap of the Daytona 500, Logano actually pulled a major block on teammate Brad Keselowski, causing a horrific, fiery wreck. But that kind of racing is what Logano is bringing into question today, as he was the victim of a really scary crash. After Ryan Newman's wreck in 2020, the Daytona 500, the aero package for these superspeedways was changed again, and yet these cars keep getting airborne. I scoured the internet for the 2021 Superspeedway package, and there's really not a lot of information on it, because every time I typed it in, I would just get the race name and the package type that said Superspeedway. I really didn't get good information. I'm really sorry, but if this is the same package that they ran last year at Talladega, here is what it is. I have it on the screen for you here. It's reduced horsepower. They have drag reduction. This is all a bunch of fancy stuff that I'm not sure of. I'm not sure how the slip tape here is helping or hurting the drivers. I think the inability for these cars to actually lock onto each other is causing more wrecks and is causing a lot more finicky cars than it's worth. But that is the Superspeedway package as it sits presently. I am pretty sure I would highly recommend looking up the 750 and 550 horsepower packages and what they entail. I can do a video on them actually if you all would like, but I would absolutely bring someone else onto the channel who knows more about them than I do for an episode with that. But let me know in the comments below if you want to talk about these packages a little bit more. I know when we talk about the next gen car, we're definitely going to break that down. And with this being the last year for this package, I'm not sure if it's worth it at this point, but let's just keep focused on this wreck for now before we kind of go off on a different tangent. I want to show you all Joey Logano's post-race interview here, and I want to bring forward other driver takes on this. So let's start with this video from Joey Logano.
For Joey Logano, one of the tallest drivers in the field. Joey, what goes through your mind when you see those replays there?
I guess I don't know exactly what to think. You know, it's a product of this racing, and on one hand, I'm so proud to drive a cup car that is safe, that I can go through a crash like that and get out and speak about it. And one hand, I'm mad about being in the crash. The other hand, I'm just happy I'm alive. On the other hand, I think, when are we going to stop? Because this is dangerous, doing what we're doing. I got a roll bar in my head. You know what I mean? That's not okay. I'm one hit away from the same situation Ryan Newman just went through. I just don't feel like that's acceptable. A lot of us do this big spoiler and these big runs, the pushing and all that. It's no one's fault, right? I mean, Denny's trying to go and 47's trying to go. It's a product of this racing. We have to fix it, though, because someone already got hurt and we're still doing it, so that's not real smart. So, but at the same time, I'm appreciative of driving a car that's this safe, and appreciate what Team Penske's done for the safety of these cars as well, that I can live to talk about it and go again. So I got lucky I didn't get hit while I was in the air. So unfortunate for our Auto Trader Mustang, but we'll go on. We'll go on. It won't be a good starting spot next week.
Thanks, Joey. I'm glad you're okay.
So that's Joey Logano's take on the situation. The top three drivers in the field, Keselowski, McDowell, and Byron, were asked the same question about the package that Logano brought into question. Brad Keselowski says that he is frustrated with constantly having to learn rules changes. He kind of feels like that kind of kid in high school out of place here. In a post-race interview with the media, he mentioned this. Keselowski thinks the rules package makes it incredibly easy for runs to build, and it's easier for side-by-side racing, but doesn't know if that's the cause of these cars getting airborne more easily. But there's a general consensus across all the drivers that they have to keep these cars on the ground. Don't know how to do it, but we have to figure out a way to keep these cars rooted on the track. McDowell said the next-gen car presents a new package, so he's not too sure. And I think we're not going to be able to explore this possibility until we get to the next-gen car. William Byron suggested in his post-race interview that maybe have the cars go slower by like 2 to 3 miles per hour. He thinks that this is the best speedway package that they've had in a while because it doesn't allow a single car to control the race. I think that's why I like it. There's constant movement, and I do agree with Byron on that perspective. But here's my take on this. We need to test and find a package that works, but the only way to test effectively is not just with 1 to 5 cars on the track. It's with a whole field, which makes testing a test pretty difficult. And with next-gen car, we really don't have time to test these cars, and it's really not worth it at this point. I agree with every point made that I just mentioned. Joey Logano, something really does need to change, making these cars safer. But then it's how much safer can you really make these cars and make these situations? I agree with William Byron. Maybe slowing down would be effective. But if you see the banks of these superspeedway tracks, I don't think slowing down is really going to help these cars. And then I see the argument that we should totally stop racing at these superspeedway tracks. I've seen this across social media, and here's my response to that. No. I do not think we should stop racing at these tracks, but NASCAR has to find a way to make things safer here. Yet, I do not think racing here with a ton of restrictions is that fun, too, because It's like asking the drivers to become robots. It's just not that entertaining or effective. And it's hard to ask these drivers to drive safer because when you're in those cars, you're asked to make split-second decisions. And a lot of the time, those split-second decisions will be the wrong one. But again, some of these block spool today were just dangerous and so uncalculated. Yes, these drivers are hungry for wins, and yes, this is one of the only tracks on the circuit where a surprise winner is almost guaranteed, so you're going to have guys, desperate guys, racing hard with their adrenaline and not their brains. Hell, I thought Chastain was going to kill people today. I've mentioned that before, but he just kept zigzagging in and out of line across other drivers. It was really, really scary and unnecessary, but this is just one example of many I saw today. It's just the most prominent one I can think of on the top of my brain as I'm just kind of spitting out my opinion here. But I guess all this to say, there has to be a way to keep these cars on the ground. I don't know if it's adding more weight, if it's more horsepower. I don't know. I'm not an engineer. I can't say. It's just insane to me that Logano's wreck probably would have stayed on the track if that one nudge, that one tiny nudge from Stenhouse didn't send him flying in the air. I totally think it would have been an on-track incident if that didn't happen. So it's insane to see. I do want to say, though, I do want to praise NASCAR for all they've done over these past few years with their safety measures. They've really stepped up. There's obviously there's still more work to do on the safety side of things, but they actually have done a really good job keeping these cars incredibly safe. Finally, let's dive into moment number 3 called It's Gonna Cost Ya or Help You. Pit road penalties were given out like candy on Halloween today. It costed some of these teams great finishes, but first major penalty was for Harrison Burton as he carried his fuel can out of the box with him. Not the Cup debut shining moment that he wanted, but he did recover from this early incident, finishing in front of all his other Toyota competitors. Luckily, it was under the competition caution, so it was not a green flag pit stop that would have really sent him a few laps down. On the same stop, Martin Truex Jr. and Brian Preece went to the rear for being too fast on pit road, and oh boy, so many drivers were hit by this penalty today. I think this penalty really affected the Toyotas because most of the drivers to get this penalty were the Toyotas, and it destroyed their strength in numbers a bit and really just left them kind of high and dry on the track. Hamlin was too fast entering during green flag stops and was served a penalty where he was again too fast entering pit road. That mistake cost him his race after leading the most of the laps, and again, so close yet so far for the 11 team. Newman with a speeding penalty as well, and we saw teams get penalized for crew members over the wall too soon, like Harvick and Preece. Preece got penalized twice for this. Lots of just silly mistakes on this track coming on and off pit road, but to be fair, these guys are going 200 miles per hour on the track, and then they're asked to go 60 miles on pit road. It's not easy, but it did cost a lot of races today. Now the time has come to talk about this final caution. Martin Truex Jr. brought out the caution with 4 to go after a tire of his unraveled on the track. This caution is dicey because with 6 to go, he blew his tire but failed to come to pit road. This begs the question, why did he not? So there is speculation as to whether he stayed out to manipulate this race, and obviously I cannot speak to the fact because I don't know if that's accurate. Not Martin Truex's head, not on the radio, don't know. I do not think Martin Truex would do this intentionally to help out his teammates who were struggling at this point, but he knew his tire was down for those 2 laps and didn't take care of it. That's kind of unexcusable to me. Matt DiBenedetto had the lead at this point, and I thought if we went green to the end, he could have had the win and could have had it, but nope. Just another bad blow for that team. This caution stacked the field back up again, sent the Toyotas further back to the pack, and diminished Matt's shot at winning. So overall, if this was an intentional thing, it really didn't help out the Toyotas whatsoever. Not a good look for the 19 team who made a mistake there, and now I have to talk about the final lap. I had a whole play-by-play planned out, and it had been in the first video I was going to post to YouTube, but YouTube did not like me showing a whole 2-minute shot-by-shot of the final lap, so we're going to condense this here and just discuss what happened to Matt DiBenedetto. Matt was leading before the white flag dropped with arguably the best pusher in the field, Brad Keselowski, right behind him. DiBenedetto struggled to commit to a line during the final restart as he kept trying to block the runs all over the track, and unfortunately when it came time to commit to a line on the final lap, Matt saw a run coming at the top line and went to block that, and that was just the wrong choice. It was not good enough as the bottom line with Byron, Harvick, Mcdowell, and the race winner Brad Keselowski charging to the front, leaving Matt DiBenedetto falling through the field. Matt chose the wrong line to block the momentum and lost his lead, but at the time, it seemed to be the right move. But you know, if you have Harvick, Mcdowell, and Keselowski all in a row, no matter how scary it is, you gotta stay with that row. One mistake, one moment, like I'm an Eminem song, can let the wind slip through your fingers. A heartbreaking mistake that costed Matt his first career win. But for sure, though, he has good momentum on his side. I mentioned this before, but I think a win is coming his way. I'm hoping it comes this season. I'm hoping it comes in his contract year. We need good things for Matt DiBenedetto. I'm sending that 21 team good vibes. Those are my top 3 moments of the race. Now it is time to move on to rate this race above or below the yellow line. I'm mentioning all these moments and how they impacted the race, and I know they all seem pretty negative, so let me tell you what I liked about this race, because trust me, my view of this race was anything but negative. Notice none of these moments mention words like boring, tame, or uneventful, or even just sounds like meh. They all involved action, excitement, just like I wanted from Talladega. There was barely any train racing, or I guess racing in straight lines. There were always 2x2 or 3-ride racing, meaning consistent movement. And I've said it before, but this time it's legit. There was consistent movement. There were so many changes for the lead today, and no one was able to run away with the lead at all, which is racing I love so much. Once you thought someone had the lead, the line beside them would charge to the front, and the safety net you thought your driver had was gone. And safety is a funny word to use here because there really is none. There is no comfort. There is no relaxation. It was on edge the whole time, which, yes, can get exhausting and create more anxiety than it's worth. But after a season of iffy, underwhelming, better than the last race, decent, I think we got some really exciting racing today. However, I am docking some points from this race, and here is why. I would have loved to see this go green towards the end because it was an exciting race brewing, honestly. We didn't see it play out, and I was really bummed about that. Instead, we had a bolt to the finish, which can be good, but it can also be chaotic. And at the time, before we had the Martin Truex caution, which is another reason I'm docking points because Martin Truex Jr., what are you doing? But Eric Jones was leading, and Matt DiBenedetto was right behind him for second. How cool would that have been to see those two iconic numbers, the 43 and the 21, finish first or second at Talladega? That would have been incredible. And I am super, super sad that we did not get to see that play out. I also have to dock some points for careless blocks that almost got drivers into very serious accidents because as intense and as nail-biting as it was, seeing drivers almost get hurt isn't fun. I don't like cheering for wrecks. They can make things interesting, but my goodness, I don't want to see drivers almost get hurt, flip upside down. That's scary for me as a fan. I cannot imagine how scary that is for the driver in the car and for their families watching at home. I don't like it. The careless wrecks and careless blocks were I was not a fan of. Did not like. But all this said, this was by far my favorite race this season. This race is getting a 95% on the scale, absolutely above the yellow line. It sits supreme on the list with Homestead right behind it in the ratings. So that is my rating of this race. How would you rate this race? Let me know in the comments below. And for me, that is all today. Thank you all so much for listening to Above the Yellow Line, the show where we talk about all the updates, theories, news, recaps, and more of the NASCAR Cup Series. Next race is at Kansas. I'll be covering that race for the podium finish, so make sure you check me out on their website. It is such a fun group to be a part of, and they produce awesome content from interviews to recaps and previews. If you want more from me, check out my Twitter page where I post lap-by-lap coverage on race days, and I post news and updates daily as they come out. Tune in next time for a pre-race podcast and updates podcast for, I cannot believe I'm saying this name right now, but the Bushy McBush Race 400 at Kansas Speedway. I kid you not, that is the correct name. We will talk about that all and a lot more next episode, but until then, thank you all so much for the support, and until next time, I'll see ya.